Welcome to a brand new season and episode of Law and Batting Order. I'm your host, Tony Oikasas. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Season 4 premiere of Lavo. I've got a lot planned this season in terms of future shows, which includes the premiere of The Huddle, which is a roundtable discussion highlighting a key sports law topic, so be on the lookout for that. Anyway, it's been a while since I said this. Here are some quick hits from the past 2 weeks. The NBA Finals have kicked off, and boy, do we have a matchup for the ages. The Miami Heat earned their third straight Eastern Conference crown after beating the Indiana Pacers in 7 games. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs won the Western Conference Finals, advancing to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2007. Both teams have proven they can compete. Can LeBron and company escape with a second consecutive championship, or will Tim Duncan and Tony Parker help carry the team to their 4th NBA championship in 10 years? Based on how Game 1 was played, it's anybody serious at this point. At the time this episode was filmed, San Antonio has taken Game 1 of the NBA Finals and has 3 more chances to win and take the crown from King James. During the 1990s, I grew up watching Mark McGwire, Jose Canseco, and Barry Bonds sack home runs like there was no tomorrow. Little did I know that I was watching some of the biggest steroid users in baseball, and entering my teenage years, I followed one of the biggest steroid scandals baseball had ever seen with the emergence of the Balco scandal. Well, scratch that, because today we have officially witnessed the largest steroid and performance-enhancing drug scandal to date. This past week, ESPN's Outside the Lines released reports of Major League Baseball cooperating and working alongside Tony Bosch, the owner of the former Miami-based health clinic Biogenesis. Biogenesis has been in the news for the past few months, as there has been suspicion that Bosch supplied performance-enhancing drugs to current Major League Baseball players, including Alex Rodriguez, Ryan Braun, and Melky Cabrera. OTL reports that MLB is prepared to suspend A-Rod, Ryan Braun, and Melky Cabrera, along with 17 other players, for as many as 100 games. If these suspensions are handed down, this will be a new chapter in Major League Baseball's drug testing program as it continues to protect the integrity of the sport. These suspensions have yet to be handed out, but right now, it doesn't look pretty. The Stanley Cup Finals are shaping up as we've reached the Conference Finals and are soon to conclude the Conference Finals. Over in the Eastern Conference, the Boston Bruins swept the top-seeded Pittsburgh Penguins, sending the Bruins to their first Stanley Cup Finals since 2011. Over in the Western Conference, the Chicago Blackhawks have a 3-1 lead over the LA Kings at the time this episode was filmed. But based on the way the Blackhawks have played all season and throughout the NHL playoffs, it would not be a surprise to me if they escape with a series win and return to the Stanley Cup Finals since they won in 2010. Today's Order in the Court will be taking a look at the mess currently happening at Rutgers University and the hire of their new athletic director. If you recall, a few months ago, Rutgers University's men's basketball program was under the spotlight as video footage surfaced of Coach Mike Rice belittling his players by calling them homophobic slurs and derogatory terms while throwing basketballs at their heads, pushing and shoving them. Rutgers responded by firing Coach Mike Rice along with then athletic director Tim Pernetti. Rutgers began the search for their new athletic director, and ultimately, on May 15th, they made the choice of hiring Julie Hermann, who had previously been the senior athletics administrator at Louisville University. In no time, a new scandal erupted, this time surrounding the hire of Julie Hermann. According to media reports, it was believed that Ms. Hermann had a few issues of her own, including a sexual discrimination lawsuit filed against her in 2008 when she was at Louisville. In that case, an assistant track and field coach alleged that she went to Ms. Hermann to complain about sexist and discriminatory behavior that she experienced from the track and field head coach. This assistant coach was then fired 3 weeks later. Hermann was also linked to allegations of verbally abusing members of the University of Tennessee women's volleyball team in the late 1990s when Hermann was their women's volleyball coach. These incidents have raised questions about the hiring of Julie Hermann. While many wonder how these complaints were missed when Hermann was initially hired, many have called Rutgers to reevaluate the hiring of Julie Hermann. Many have even wondered if her contract should be terminated, even though she just came on board a few weeks ago. All of these questions can be answered by taking a look at New Jersey's laws regarding termination of employment. In today's episode, I'll discuss how the rules of employment law, primarily cause for termination, apply in the case of Julie Hermann. Let's start off this topic by discussing a fundamental rule in employment law, which is at-will employment. Simply put, an at-will employee is an employee who is hired for an indefinite term not specified in writing. By not being hired for a definite period of time, this employee runs the risk of facing termination with or without cause at any given time. New Jersey recognizes employment at will, and in fact, New Jersey common law abides by employment at will principles if there is no contract between an employee and the employer. In this case, it seems that Ms. Hermann is not an employee at will. It is unknown how long Hermann's tenure will be as athletic director. However, it seems that Ms. Hermann signed a contract. USA Today reported last week that Ms. Hermann, on May 14th, signed a Memorandum of Understanding contract, which includes a clause that she can be terminated for cause. As long as she signed a contract, New Jersey's at-will employee law does not apply. Therefore, I believe Ms. Hermann is not an at-will employee. Now that we have established that Ms. Hermann is most likely not an at-will employee at Rutgers, the question that needs to be asked is on what grounds can Ms. Hermann be terminated? To look at what amounts to cause for termination, you have to look at the contract. In the majority of New Jersey case law I read, the New Jersey courts relied heavily on the definition of just cause contained in the employee's contract or in the employee handbook, which defines when an employer has sufficient grounds to terminate the employment of one of its own employees. In the case of Ms. Hermann, going back to the Memorandum of Understanding contract that USA Today discusses, it states that Ms. Hermann can be terminated with cause or receive other discipline for acts of moral turpitude or conduct tending to bring shame or disgrace to the university or otherwise detrimental to the university's good name and reputation. It is almost certain that this cause for termination clause will be contained in Ms. Hermann's actual contract. So based on this information, does Rutgers have sufficient grounds to already terminate Ms. Hermann even though she is a new hire? That's hard to say. I would tend to say no. Hermann has come out a few days ago and publicly acknowledged that while these incidents happen, those are behind her and that she's willing to move on. Furthermore, her acts, if anything, could be potentially less egregious than Mike Rice's abhorrent behavior when he was serving as the men's basketball coach. I think Ms. Hermann's issues in Tennessee and Louisville are open for interpretation as to whether they are detrimental to Rutgers, especially since Rutgers is trying to regroup after the Mike Rice debacle. Whatever the case is, Ms. Hermann's prior history will continue to be in the spotlight in the coming days, weeks, and even months. Before I wrap up today's episode, I wanted to make two very special announcements. The first is that a few weeks ago, an article that I wrote for Pace Law School's Sports and Entertainment Law Forum was published. So, I'm an officially published author. My article is on government intervention in Major League Baseball's drug testing program. If you have some time to spare, be sure to click the link below this video to read my article. And secondly, I'm proud to announce that as recent as a few days ago, Law and Batting Order surpassed 5,000 views on YouTube. If you told me this time last year that I would reach that many views, I would probably laugh. But thankfully, I have reached this milestone, and this could not be possible without you, Labo Nation. So thank you for subscribing, watching Labo episodes, and sharing them with your colleagues, friends, and family. Before you know it, we'll be reaching 10,000 views in no time. Anyway, that's the show. Leave all your comments down below, and be sure to visit Law and Batting Order at lawandbattingorder.com, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Take care, guys.